TopMedTalk.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next speaker. Dr. Daniel Conway is a consultant in anaesthesia and critical care at University Hospitals in Manchester. And as well as being research active in perioperative medicine, he's been involved in the introduction of the combined prehab and rehab pathway in the Northwest. And he's going to talk to us about ERAS+.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Jerry and the organisers for inviting me to speak today. Particularly like to thank him for putting me on after Monty. It's a bit like coming on after the Rolling Stones. But at least Monty's trousers... Yeah, Monty's trousers aren't as tight as Mick Jagger's, so I've got a fighting chance here to tell you a little bit about our ERAS Plus programme. Is this going to work? Not that one, this one. Okay. Yeah, okay. And just, I know there's quite a few people from Canada and Australia here today. So for those of you who don't know, you're currently in London, which is one of Manchester's southern suburbs. And we're very famous for our football and music, and we're incredibly friendly unless you mess us around. So just bear that in mind. And I just want to make the point that there's people from all over the place here. There's some incredible work we've heard about today from all around the world, and it's a real honour for me to be able to talk about some of the work that we've been able to do in Manchester. And I very much hope that you're able to take some of the ideas that we've done and some of the achievements that we've made back to your hospitals. We've got, for example, surgery schools that have been established in Melbourne, Cambridge, Southampton, and all over Greater Manchester as well. So it's something that you can certainly think about and achieve in your hospital. Okay. And as we've already heard, I thought that was really moving in the previous session when we talked about the marathon of cancer, the marathon de cancer. I really think that a lot of what we're talking about here will be cancer surgery, although it does apply to other major surgery. And what you have with these people with cancer, they have hit after hit after hit that just knocks back their physiological reserve. And whatever we can do to improve that has got to be a good thing. And as has already been mentioned, surgery remains the mainstay of solid organ cancer treatment. And so we are very much part of cancer treatment. Now, in Manchester, we don't have great outcomes from our cancer patients. And so what we've been doing is very much part of trying to improve that for our population. And as Monty's already mentioned, the Enhanced Recovery Programme, a lot of it was actually hips and knees. Some was obviously colorectal cancer. But for some of the more major cancer patients and more major cancer surgeries, you know, we implemented enhanced recovery, but we realised that it probably wasn't quite enough for those patients. And so we've developed something that we ended up calling ERAS+. And one of the key things that we were looking at was to try and reduce post-operative pulmonary complications. And so if you think about one of Monty's earlier slides where he was talking about reducing the physiological stress response to surgery, avoiding opiates, not leaving bits of plastic inside patients, all those things count and are still important as part of ERAS, but they probably aren't enough to help us reduce post-op pulmonary complications, and they probably don't do much around cognitive dysfunction either. But our programme started with the intention of reducing post-op pulmonary complications, and so I think you've got to understand that to see where we've evolved from and how we got to where we are now. And just to remind you, post-operative pulmonary complications, there are different definitions. There's the EPCO definition, but more recently the STEP compact definition has basically broken it down to, well, pneumonia, they'll use the US CDC definition, which is actually quite similar to that one. Respiratory definition, they're going to use the Berlin consensus for ARDS, where the PF ratio is less than 40, which again, if you look at respiratory failure on that bottom area there, it's 40 as a cutoff between mild and moderate ARDS. And generally, I think the STEP compact has decided to sort of partly drop the atelectasis because, frankly, atelectasis is so common after major abdominal surgery anyway. Everybody's going to get it. So that's just to remind you what post-op pulmonary complications and how they're defined. They're pretty common. For major abdominal surgery, It's probably about 1 in 5 patients will experience a post-op pulmonary complication, according to some of the studies that I'm going to show you very briefly. And there are ways to assess the risk of a patient developing pulmonary complications. So the ARISCAT, which came from Spain, identified a number of factors: people with pre-existing respiratory disease, increasing age, anemia, and then the type of surgery that they're having, either upper abdominal surgery, thoracic surgery, and then the longer the time they spend in surgery, or if it's an emergency, the more likely they are to have a pulmonary complication. And these data were kind of validated in a couple of other European studies, including the most recent one called Las Vegas, which showed that if your ARISCAT score was relatively high, about 1 in 5 patients would get a pulmonary complication. So basically, anyone having major abdominal surgery lasting more than 2 hours is likely to get has got a 1 in 5 chance of pulmonary complications. And then Las Vegas again sort of went back through and did the various risks associated with pulmonary complications, and most of them are very, very similar to ARISCAT, but I'd just like to point out that history of active cancer is also a risk factor for development of pulmonary complications, because these patients are already deconditioned. So we thought about how are you going to go about reducing pulmonary complications, and this is where our ERAS Plus program developed. Now, if you look where it says Manchester experience, this is what we did, but actually subsequent to that, we were involved in a Delphi study, talking to other people with an interest in the area, and there are probably 3 main areas you can address patients and try and reduce pulmonary complications. One is a preoperative exercise program, which is what we've heard a lot about today. Inspiratory muscle training, which is really important and relatively well evidence-based. And there's a great paper in the BMJ by Ayanthi Bowden, who's able to demonstrate that preoperative inspiratory muscle training, even just 1 30-minute session with a patient, was enough to reduce pulmonary complications. The intraoperative technique, for those of you who are anaesthetists, you'll be aware of. And then post-operatively, there is still some evidence for deep breathing exercises. What we did in Manchester was slightly like this. We triaged patients, so we tried to identify who are the highest risk patients. We developed something called Surgery School, which is an educational event I'm going to tell you about. And we also implemented a respiratory care bundle called ICOF. And so you can see that these elements were part of our ERAS program, and we added into that some materials that were available online and on YouTube called ICOF UK TV. I want to talk to you very briefly about Surgery School, but it is one of the really successful elements of our ERAS Plus program, and it's one that when people come to look at it, they seem most interested in, and anyone who wants to come and view our program is more than welcome to do so. And it's an event where we invite a group of patients and their loved ones and really talk to them about how to prepare for surgery. And we talk to a whole range of different types of surgery. It's not just cancer surgery, but we have vascular patients and we have some transplant patients. And we talk about 4 key areas, which you've already heard about a lot today, and that's nutrition, activity, breathing exercises, and then also the support of friends and family and their communities. And we talk to people about how they can improve and prepare themselves and get ready for surgery. And they also have the opportunity to visit some of the care areas that they'll be looked after in, and meet some of the staff as well, which I think is really good and really reassuring for patients. And so these are the 4 areas that I mentioned, and this is a slide that we use in Surgery School. And as well as these sort of things we've been hearing about today, we do make quite a big deal out of the breathing exercises, and we actually get people practicing with incentive spirometers all together in their groups, supported by one of us or a physiotherapist. And so we implemented this respiratory care bundle, and I know that this meeting is about prehabilitation, but I just want to make the point that in some ways we have to mesh together the pre and post. You know, part of the reason that we do some of the prehabilitation, yes, it's to improve somebody's physiological state, but with things like breathing exercises and incentive spirometry, it's actually also so that they know what they're doing in the immediate post-operative phase. And the same applies for, I think, for exercise as well. And so, although we're talking a lot about prehabilitation today, it's really important to have an eye on the rehabilitation as well. And so this is the ICOF. You can see the acronyms, and it's about helping patients get their lungs big and clean. And again, this is very similar to a slide that we show our patients and talk through. There are other things that are part of our enhanced recovery. So coincidentally, at the time, and because people are very enthusiastic about perioperative medicine where we are, our pharmacists decided to set up an enhanced surgical medicines optimization service they called ESMOS. And that's really very much the same thing. It's about making sure that patients are seen preoperatively by a pharmacist. Often it's a virtual appointment, which is what you and I call a telephone call, and but it's charged differently. And it's really about making sure that patients are on the right meds, they know what they should be taking, they know what they shouldn't be taking before they come in for their operation, and they also know to bring their own meds in on the day of surgery and bring them in the boxes that they come in so that people know what they're actually taking, which is very helpful apparently. And to the pharmacist, and the pharmacist will also write the prescription chart, which is very helpful to the anaesthetist. So everybody's a winner. And that's been able to sort of avoid a lot of problems and cancellations on the day. And again, it's just another person that the patient can talk to get that confidence, to feel that they're be looked after and they're doing the right thing. And I think that's really important. So the element that we've probably not heard that much about today is about the psychological preparation. And to be fair, we kind of overlooked it a little bit until we discovered that Rachel Powell, who wrote the Cochrane Review on Psychological Preparation for Surgery, works at Manchester University. And so we've become friends with Rachel, and she's helped us quite a bit. But the most important thing is it's about that human contact, about giving patients the reassurance to believe that it's going to be okay, because a lot of what drives poor outcomes from a psychological point of view is anxiety. And if you can get over people's anxiety around what's going to happen to them, then you can really make a difference. And it's not just the doctors doing it. You don't need a specialist psychologist. It could even be, your admin staff who are supporting patients along their journey. And of course, we provide written materials and videos as well. So the final couple of slides, I just want to point out that there are all these teachable moments in the surgical patient's journey, right from, as we've already heard today, from the GP, where the GP's got a suspicion that something might not be right, all the way through to when people have been discharged following their operation. These are teachable moments, which means that it's an opportunity for us to really try and make a difference to our patients and their long-term behaviour around their health and their attitudes to their health. And surgery school kind of fits in there as well. So here's some dates. Here's some results from our paper that we wrote. It's a before and after study, so it's not a randomised control trial, but you can see that, as predicted, we had about a 1 in 5 post-op pulmonary complication rates from moderate to high-risk ARISCAT scores, and we were able to halve that, and we've been able to sustain that for all the way through. We're still monitoring what we're doing, which is important when you think about what Monty was saying about making things stick. We've gone through over 4,000 patients on our program now. We still collect data on our patients. We do some patient surveys to see how they are finding the program, and we're constantly modifying the program. And actually having people coming to visit you means that it gives you an opportunity to talk and think about what you're doing. So it's also a good thing. So this is some of our patient data. And what I would say is this is a survey conducted by Gabrielle Pape, who's Australian, who's working with us for a little while. And one thing I would notice there, I would point out there, is that I think patients found it easier and were more readily able to do the breathing exercises rather than significantly increasing physical activity. And so I do feel that the breathing exercises is a kind of quick win, and it's something you can probably do even if you have a short time frame. And Ianthe's study and some of the physio studies have shown that even within a 1 week or 2 week window, you can make a difference to respiratory function by doing appropriate inspiratory muscle training. And the final thing is that it's very much a team effort. It's not just about the prehabilitation and the partnership with the patients, but it's actually about the post-op care as well. So implementing ICOF and ERAS Plus, we've engaged our nurses, and you can see that this is a sort of a memo, an email sent out by one of our nurses, just saying to everyone, we're doing this. we're keeping on getting the compliance with the treatments that we need. And so you do need to have people who are enthusiastic, who will just keep this going and keep it sustained. And so in summary, ERAS Plus started off as a kind of bundle to reduce pulmonary complications, but it's grown from there. You're going to hear tomorrow from my colleague John how we've been able to spread it right across Greater Manchester to involve leisure providers and gyms and people like that to help us with the prehabilitation. We run a surgery school which has proved pretty popular, and I will honestly say it's really transferable to your hospital, and it's really fun to deliver. It's a nice thing to do as a doctor or a nurse to provide this kind of information to patients, and you get terrific feedback from them. And then it's very much about a team approach, and then a good platform to build community links, which I think is where this all comes back to. Just like we said before, it's about going into schools and workplaces and into the community to really help people get themselves fit and ready, because most of them, or a lot of them, are going to have surgery at some point. Thank you.
TopMedTalk. Thanks for downloading TopMedTalk. Don't forget to subscribe via your podcatcher. Don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And also, don't forget, TopMedTalk is the broadcasting arm of EBPOM, Evidence-Based Perioperative Medicine. We'd love you to find out more about that. If you check out ebpom.org, you can find low prices on some of the conferences we're organising around the world. Many of them are virtual and don't even involve you leaving your own home. Check out ebpom.org now.